Hello guys, today we're talking about the box office, and yeah, the box office is doing alright. It's doing much better than what has been last year, definitely. And definitely much better than it has been in March, where the box office was absolutely doing abysmally until Godzilla vs. Kong, restored faith in humanity, and people wanted to go see that movie in the theaters. Yeah, Godzilla vs. Kong did do worse than Godzilla King of the Monsters, but I think that was expected given the critical reception of Godzilla vs. Kong and no Godzilla King of the Monsters, and given the whole thing, and given the fact that people were really about seeing the movie after Godzilla King of the Monsters, because a lot of the more critical people didn't want to see it. A lot of the more critical people were critical of the last movie because they just can't get over the fact that it was not enough about the human. It was not enough about the humans. There was too much monsters. And yeah, we'll have the domestic starts for box office here. And the number one movie, Fast 9, only made $24 million, is at the box office. This movie has passed 113 and nearing $500 million. I can safely say that this movie is not a box office flop. It's doing having abysmal legs like every Fast and Furious movie, but it's still in the average movie. It's still performing in the average movie that grosses around 30 million yen, but it's not performing as high as some people would hope it would. So I think that franchise fatigue is definitely up this year, and it's just performing very similar to other Fast and the Furious movies. I think if we really want to compare this movie to another movie, we can really compare this movie to Hobbs and Shaw, which is the only Fast and the Furious movie that made that similar amount of money. And Hobbs and Shaw, it is doing better than Hobbs and Shaw, which ended up grossing $133 million. So this will probably gross north of Hobbs and Shaw. Again, Hobbs and Shaw also had that similar weekend drop as well, and it likely will go slightly over Hobbs and Shaw. Fast and the Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw, which of course also didn't really have the greatest of legs either. But because of the legs of the newest Fast and Furious movie, it's not going to really do much better than Hobbs and Shaw probably worldwide. Which means this movie will still be a success, just like Hobbs and Shaw was. But I think people are really getting sick of Fast and the Furious as a franchise. I think people are getting really sick of the Fast and the Furious franchise. I think that's what is really happening here, not really anything new. Franchise fatigue, I think, is really hurting a lot of movies this year. And for as many movies, Fast and Furious movies there are, I think people are getting sick of it. I think people want something different from Universal, but they're gonna continue making these movies as long as they make money. As long as they make money, they'll continue making Fast and the Furious movies. These. Uh, Next movie is the Boss Baby Family Business. Yep, the movie is performing as expected. The international box office was not really updated for this movie. I can see a box office Bozo had. They don't even have any data on the movie on this weekend. Yeah, they don't really have any data on this weekend. Yeah, they just have just the domestic gross because box office Bozo is super behind. But Boss Baby 2 will probably go on later this day and see the international box office because the international boxes they have no data on it whatsoever. Next is the Forever Pose, which opened with 12 million. I'm shocked that this movie. This is another series I think is starting to suffer from franchise fatigue. Don't know the budget for this movie, but it only made $12 million. I know it's a 4-day weekend, but this movie isn't really doing too well at all. It opened far worse than the first Purge, where it's the first Purge again with sour taste in many people's mouths. And the Forever Purge has a 3 million. No, doesn't really have a budget. Budget is 18 to 25 million. And it's the Forever Purge at the end of the series. Well, you never know if it makes enough money, they're gonna make another one. That's basically how these movies work. If they make money, they'll make another movie more than likely. Because again, they can do about another country, and another country implements a similar style of the Purge. Okay, but as long as the Purge movies continue making money and continue making profitable, I think they'll continue making Purge movies probably forever. Wouldn't be surprised, but the Forever Purge is currently has a budget of 18 million, so it's not doing too well. and it will probably need to make around 46 to 38 million dollars. 40 around. Okay, so 18 times 42 is 42. 18 times 18 is 18 times 2 is like 42, I think. So it needs to make $42 million to break even, which is already like halfway there. But this movie might not do too well at the box office, given its controversial material. Considering that we live in modern day now and we can't have anything about the southern border, basically, or else, the movie we called racist, the movie we called, if it's not viewed in, of course, the liberal sense of word. Let's look at Rambo 5 and Peppermint. Those movies were basically unfairly treated by the critics just because the main villains were the cartels from Mexico. But yeah, the Forever Purge is not doing too well. The Boss Baby 2 doesn't even have a foreign box office yet, which is surprising. Well, not surprising all too well, because that's how they are. They don't want to update it. But it has a 5.9 on IMDb. IMDb 5.9, so. But they don't really have the full budget, the full amount of gross for the movie either, because that's how it is. But yeah, but I'm not too surprised that people hate the Boss Baby 2, because people hated the first one. That's how it was, And I think people could be the haters of Boss Baby are going to be much more louder on this one because it's going to make less money. I mean, if a movie makes less money, the haters are definitely going to get their opinions out more than the first one. With I believe that's what's happening with the IMDb score. Next is A Quiet Place Part 2. This movie continues to make money at the box office. It is slowing down a lot, only making $240 million at the box office, but they are making more Quiet Place movies and more movies in the Quiet Place universe. It's just how much more money can it make until Escape Room 2 comes out? And the Purge is not really destroying this movie at all. The Purge is not really changing anything. Next is Hitman's Bodyguard again. It's doing abysmally internationally. It's not doing well internationally. That's the reason why this movie is a flop, because it's not doing well internationally. But we could go to Box Office Mojo to see if Box Office Mojo has anything about international box office. But I think without international appeal, this is why the problem with movies like Hitman's Bodyguard is that it needs to have international appeal. Okay, it needs to have international appeal at the box office. Okay, and that's the problem with movies like The First Purge and The Heights. It's because nobody wants to watch the movies internationally. The movies are not going to get really good international releases. That's why I have the problem with movies like Old and Comeback Trailers are also coming out on the 23rd. They might struggle to find an international audience, unlike The Boss Baby 2 and, of course, Peter Rabbit 2, where they're having a much easier time finding an international audience at the box office than, let's just say, any other movie at the box office is. But the international box office, I think, is something that is of concern for some of those movies, because they need to make money internationally. Even like a movie in the Heights, but even did gross like 50 to 60 million domestically, but it continued to bomb internationally. And yeah, they have it at 15 million, so it's not doing well internationally, which is the problem. Boss Baby don't have the international numbers for that movie yet. So if the Boss Baby struggles to find a audience internationally, that movie is definitely gonna flop. Basically, it's gonna be another box office failure among, of course. Which is not too surprising, considering that a lot of people hated the first movie, and a lot of people half the audience was the people who hated the first movie say it's one of the worst animated movies of all time, literally saying that on the internet. They're not gonna come back. Basically, half the other people who did like the movie are coming to see it. I think that's what's happening with that movie. Next is Cruella. Surprisingly, Disney is doing it again. Disney is finding a way and again, Europe is finally reopening the box office. Europe is finally no longer being a bunch of wusses and reopening the box office, but That's why I said Disney's gonna find a way to make this movie they get this movie to make as much money. But again, we don't know the budget for this movie. It could be $100 million. It's $100 million to $200 million because they don't have. If it's $100 million, that means this movie is no longer a failure. It made $200 to $4 million. Sadly, this is why I could get a sequel because any box office success from Disney, in Disney's eyes, is need. It means it's gonna need to. It's gonna, of course, need to get a sequel because Disney can't think of anything new. Even though Disney's a company of creativity, they can't make any new franchises because they're so lazy. Just look at the most of the schedule for the next couple of years. It's mostly, the same things like Peter Pan. We don't need another Peter Pan movie, but apparently we're getting one. Next is Conjuring the Devil Made Me Do It. This movie is still doing well internationally, $173 million worldwide. It is continuing to do much better internationally than people thought it would do. But it's going to make a lot of money based off its small budget of like $35 million or something like that. Next movie is In the Heights, the biggest box office flop of the year so far besides Wire. It is starting to pick up internationally, but currently it's still doing far worse than movies like Cats. And its ratings are absolutely abysmal as well. I was actually doing okay as ratings, but people are expecting it to be like The Greatest Showman. No, it's not going to be like The Greatest Showman. It's only a box office failure at this point. Last movie is Peter Rabbit 2, which is actually overperforming the initial amount of money it needs to make. It is doing the best comparison for this movie is the Angry Birds movie 2, which I think that's how this movie ended up making. That's how much more money this movie will make at the box office. This movie is doing very similar to the Angry Birds movie 2, and might actually outgross the Angry Birds movie 2 at the end of it. As Peter Rabbit 2 is doing much better than the Angry Birds movie 2, so it's likely going to make much more money than the Angry Birds movie 2. But again, Peter Rabbit does have one big Space Jam sized problem coming out in 2 weeks. So yeah, that is it about the movie Peter Rabbit 2. Spirit. I don't think we're gonna really talk about Spirit. That movie's a box office flop. I don't really think they can attempt to squeeze money out of the international box office to recover the losses this movie has, but yeah, this movie is starting to come in the international box office, but it's already a box office failure already. It's not gonna make back its money from the international box office at all. But again, it hasn't released in the UK, Germany, and for some reason Portugal, which is its major market, but it hasn't released in Germany and the UK yet. But that might have been only streaming only for those countries. So yeah, did the best in Australia. That's the best it did internationally. This movie did abysmally in the US. It's doing abysmally. And then Zola, which again this movie is being hyped as the next big Oscar movie. Again, I don't think anybody really cares about this movie. It just shows, again, that people don't give a crap about what Rotten Tomatoes says anymore. The fact that movie isn't even making money at the box office. It only made $2 million or so. But again, the Oscars, they're hyping this up like it's one of the greatest movies of all time. There's like In the Heights, but nobody gives a crap. I think nobody gives a crap about Rotten Tomatoes gives their opinions anymore. Nobody gives a crap about their opinions. That's why you don't have Zola at the top of the box office. You have F9 The Fast Saga at the top of the box office. Instead of Zola, which is the movie that is basically trying to be like, oh my god, it's so great because it's so woke. Oscars, give us an Oscar, basically. That's basically Zola in a nutshell. Same thing In the Heights. In the Heights is just another box office failure. And yeah, it's doing far worse than Peter Rabbit. And you look at the critical reception of both movies, the critics hated Peter Rabbit, but of course they loved. And In the Heights is also another popular comparison is Cats, which is absolutely hilarious. This movie is going to pass Cats, but... And of course, Peter Rabbit, that's not a popular one because it came out the same week. But you look at Peter Rabbit here. This is Peter Rabbit versus In the Heights. Okay. We'll remove Cats from the list. But Peter Rabbit versus In the Heights. You can really see, but In the Heights was actually doing better. Because it was the favorite to win. But nope. Peter Rabbit is being In the Heights worldwide and domestically. Agreed by a large margin. And this movie is also flopping on HBO Max. This movie, I think, is a box office failure. But Cruella may have actually escaped the list of box office failures, depending on the actual budget for the movie. Okay, what does this still says budget 200 million to 200 million. They don't have a budget for this movie, and that's the problem. They don't even have a budget for this movie. V. But according to Forbes report, Scott Middleton is $100 million. Yeah, that's the problem. It's the budget. We don't know the budget for it. The real budget for it. So, and Disney's not going to release that numbers because they know if they release the real budget, they might be scared it might be a box office failure. And now we're going to go over Boss Baby 2, see if we can find the international box office. Yeah, Boss Baby 2. Born a Leader. I find that title pretty funny, but Boss Baby 2. Does he have a worldwide box office for this movie? No, the budget's only 82 million too. Yeah, I don't have international box office yet for that movie, so I'm assuming it'll probably be like 20 to 40 million. So it's probably around 40 million to 50 million worldwide opening. They are saying it's a 4-day weekend, so it goes for around 25 million. But I think Boss Baby might be like Peter Rabbit 2. It might barely make back its money. It's also much lower budget than the first movie, I think. And the first movie didn't really get that great critical reception, anyways. Yeah, the first movie has the second movie has a much smaller budget, 125 million. I think I don't really think they need to make a sequel to Boss Baby, but it exists now. I'm probably going to go see. I'm probably going to buy the movie anyways. I thought the first movie was funny, but the sequel might suck. If it does suck, I'll just sell it. That simple. That simple. Was released on digital HD, and was released on. Oh, that's the first one. That's the first one. We're on the second. We're on the second one, but the first one was a super hit. Might be a super hit internationally too. Might be a super hit internationally too at the box office. So that's basically about this video. The domestic gross here, and yeah, Boss Baby also got a television series. I think the Boss Baby is gonna be here to stay. I think people gonna really hate hearing that because a lot of people hate the Boss Baby 1, and a lot of people hate that sequel. Cool. Yeah. He always said there's a third one coming. Yeah, people are gonna hate that regardless, because people hated this movie. This movie. People hate the Boss Baby 1. People are gonna hate the second one. That's how it's gonna be. They're not. They're gonna complain until they get the quote unquote masterpieces. I don't know what. I don't know what masterpieces they're waiting for. Shrek 5. Because Shrek 5 has to be another cash grab, anyways. Okay. But when people pull up DreamWorks movies, where they say, "Oh, this movie typically is like at the bottom lower half of animated movies," where it's true. Same thing with Cars too. And yeah, now we could go back to the box office, yeah. And yeah, the box office doesn't really have any actual international box office. I highly doubt it only made 1 million internationally. That's like Yeah, that's like that's like yeah, that's I highly doubt. That must be like pre yeah, police info. Oh, it's because I had the very movie. That's why. Its international box office is is coming out all the way until most of its international box office. That's why it's so low. I was like, this movie must have a low box office. That's why it only released in Ukraine, Lebanon, and Bulgaria. And the next international releases for this movie is Netherlands and Mexico. So if you look at its international releases, it's not even coming out in most countries until September, because it was and yeah, basically the push up for the Boss Baby was a last second 11th hour push up. So all the international countries except for Lebanon, Ukraine, and Bulgaria have adjusted their time. I bet, and doesn't even have like a China release or anything, you know, or that. But yeah, we're gonna wait into September when this movie comes out in most countries, and October because yeah, the biggest markets are gonna be in October for this movie. So this movie could be setting up for a big box office failure, but it could become a super hit over time from the international box office, considering that it's not releasing in most countries. It's not even releasing until Russia until August 19th. So the only major markets is America and Mexico and Canada. That's the only major markets here until Russia. That's basically it about the Boss Baby. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah. That means the movie will be out on Blu-ray and the movie will stop playing in like Italy and stuff. It will like stop playing in Italy and stuff. But yeah, that's basically it about this video. That now I found out the mystery of the Boss Baby's box office. The international in the international countries, they may actually put it up in many of these international countries. But again, they have to like translate it and stuff into the languages and stuff. Which is probably why they didn't push back the movie the for all the international box countries, which is probably why that was yeah, it's pretty close to release date. Like if a movie gets delayed back, they just push back the international release dates as well. So yeah, that's why it only made 1 billion internationally. Because they only released in Bulgaria and Lebanon. Which that's a pretty impressive number for us, Bulgaria and Lebanon. And the other country. I think it was like Slovakia or something. It was like 3 countries. That's pretty impressive for just 3 countries alone. Especially Bulgaria and Lebanon. Lebanon's not a major country in the box office. Bulgaria probably made like 600,000 or something there. And yeah, you have also the here on yeah, they have not seen that. Either Google has not seen that. Yeah, it's Lebanon, Ukraine, and Bulgaria. That's really the entire international box office. It's Lebanon, Ukraine, and Bulgaria, and Netherlands and Mexico, and then everybody else is in September and October, and probably a Chinese release too. And yeah, that's basically it. Goodbye.